Ever felt like you're living in someone else's shadow? I certainly have. Welcome to my world, a world where I've always been the second fiddle to my older sister, Alina. Alina, the apple of our parents' eyes, the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. She was the one who everyone saw while I was just there. You see, in our family, Alina was the sun around which everything else, including me, revolved. The spotlight was always on her, and her achievements were celebrated with great fanfare. Whether it was her straight A's, her piano recitals, or her starring roles in school plays, Alina was always the center of attention. And then there was me, perpetually cast in her shadow. My accomplishments invisible, my efforts unnoticed, my existence seemingly insignificant. I was the quiet one, the introverted one, the one who painted beautiful landscapes but never got the applause that Alina did. Because in my parents' eyes, I was never quite good enough, never quite as impressive as Alina. I remember how my parents would beam with pride when Alina's name was called out at school award ceremonies, their eyes sparkling with joy. But when it was my turn to walk up and collect my certificates, their smiles would dim, their claps would soften, their eyes would lose that spark. It was as if my achievements meant nothing to them, as if I meant nothing to them. But I never let their indifference get to me. I continued to work hard, to strive for excellence, to carve out my own identity. I believed that one day my parents would see me for who I am, not just as Elena's little sister. But that day never came. Instead, the day came when I was publicly humiliated by my parents at Elena's graduation party. The day when they called me useless, mocked me in front of my sister's friends, made me feel worthless. That was the day when I realized that my parents would never see me, never appreciate me, never love me the way they loved Elena. It wasn't until Elena's graduation party that things really came to a head. It was supposed to be a day of celebration, but for me it was a day of public humiliation. As the cap and gown were donned, as the cheers echoed, as the champagne popped, one person's achievement was celebrated, while another's accomplishments were swept under the rug. Yes, it was Elena's graduation party, but it was also the day I was made to feel invisible in my own family. The party was in full swing, the air thick with pride and joy. Our parents were basking in the glory of Elena's success. But as they raised their glasses to toast Alina, their golden child, they didn't spare a moment to acknowledge my existence, let alone my achievements. As the evening wore on, the words useless and disappointment were hurled at me, not in hushed whispers, but loud and clear for all to hear. Each word was a dagger to my heart, each sentence a testament to their blatant favoritism. The room was filled with laughter and applause, but for me, it was a room filled with humiliation and pain. I had always known I was second best in their eyes, but that day, their disregard for me was no longer a whisper in the shadows. It was a loud, resounding declaration. And it hurt. It hurt more than I had ever thought possible. In a haze of hurt and anger, I confronted them. I poured out years of pent-up emotions, years of feeling inadequate, years of being the overlooked child. I told them how their words hurt me, how their favoritism had broken me. I told them I was more than just Elena's sister. I was a person in my own right, deserving of recognition, deserving of their love. Their response? You're overreacting. That was the last straw. I decided then it was time to step out of Elena's shadow. The path was not easy, filled with obstacles, self-doubt, and the echoing voices of disdain from my parents. But I was determined. I threw myself into my studies, my attention consumed by textbooks and lecture notes. Time seemed to whirl by in a flurry of essays, exams, and late-night study sessions. My efforts did not go unnoticed. One day, a letter arrived. It bore the emblem of my dream university, and inside, a full scholarship awaited me. This was my moment, my victory. I had proven to myself that I was not the useless child my parents had labeled me. I was capable, I was strong, and I was worth more than their harsh words. My success was a surprise to them. But it was my first taste of validation. Just when I thought I had escaped, I received a shocking call. It was a late-night call that sent shivers down my spine, the kind that makes your heart pound in your chest. The voice on the other end informed me that Alina was struggling with drug addiction. I was taken aback, my mind spinning in disbelief. How could my perfect sister, the golden child, be caught in the grip of such a dark vice? I grappled with a whirlwind of emotions. I felt a pang of sympathy for Alina, yet a part of me was also filled with resentment. After all, she had been the apple of our parents' eye, always praised and protected, while I was left in her shadow. But then again, could this be the harsh price she had to pay for being the perfect daughter? I was torn between wanting to reach out to Elena and the fear of re-engaging with the toxic environment of our family. I had worked hard to distance myself from them, to build my self-esteem away from their judgmental gaze. Would reaching out to Elena mean stepping back into that whirlpool of negativity? However, I couldn't ignore the fact that Elena was my sister. Despite the favoritism, the neglect, and the years of feeling inferior, we shared a bond that was perhaps frayed, but not entirely broken. I wrestled with these conflicting emotions, the turmoil within me reflecting the complexity of our upbringing. It was a jumble of jealousy, resentment, empathy, and surprisingly, a flicker of hope. Hope that maybe this could be a turning point, an opportunity for Elena and me to understand each other better. The revelation of Elena's struggle was a bitter pill to swallow, but it gave me a fresh perspective. It forced me to reevaluate my feelings towards her, to see beyond the golden child image and acknowledge the human being grappling with her demons. I had to make a choice. But first, I needed to speak with Elena. Elena was no longer the golden child. She was just a scared, struggling human being. In that moment of vulnerability, our roles as the golden child and the overlooked one seemed to vanish. We were just two sisters, linked by a shared history, staring at the broken pieces of what was once considered a perfect family. As we spoke, Elena's voice trembled, her words heavy with remorse. "I've always been under pressure," she confessed, "to be the best, to never fail. I felt like I couldn't show weakness, or I would disappoint everyone." Her confession was a revelation. I'd always seen Elena through the lens of resentment, never considering the weight she carried. The golden child, it turned out, bore her own gilded cage. Elena's eyes welled up as she admitted, "I was wrong. I should have stood up for you. I let Mom and Dad's expectations define me, and I let them hurt you." That admission, that acknowledgement of my pain, was what I needed to hear. It was a balm to years of emotional scars, a first step towards healing. We agreed to reconnect, to salvage the bond that our parents' favoritism had strained. Yes, it would take time, and yes, there would be difficulties, but we were determined to weather the storm together. Elena also agreed to seek help for her addiction. She recognized the destructive path she was on and made the brave choice to steer away from it. As her sister, I pledged to support her through this journey, to stand by her as she worked towards sobriety. But even as I offered my support, I knew I had to protect myself too. I had to ensure that I didn't get sucked back into the toxic environment that had caused me so much pain. I had to set boundaries, to keep a safe distance from our parents while helping Elena. I chose to support my sister, but I knew I had to set boundaries with my parents. The road to healing was long and hard, but worth it. The journey was filled with self-discovery, reflection, and a lot of tough moments. But through it all, the most valuable lesson I learned was the importance of setting boundaries and prioritizing my mental health. I realized that I had spent so many years internalizing the harmful narrative that I was less than my sister. But that wasn't true. I was and am just as valuable, just as worthy of love and respect. And I had to learn to give that love and respect to myself first. I also learned that it's okay to step away from toxic environments, even if they're family. It's okay to choose yourself, to choose your emotional well-being. In all of this, I found a newfound strength, a resilience that I never knew I had, and I saw that my sister and I were both victims of a toxic family dynamic. In the end, I realized that I am not the shadow. I am my own light.